She could buy anything, except the warmth of his silence. The moment he walked away, snow covered more than just the ground. It buried every excuse she'd built around success. Welcome back to Mr. Charles Stories, where love teaches the richest lessons. If you've ever built a life so big that you forgot who you were building it for, this one is for you. Have you ever chosen career over connection? Have you ever convinced yourself they'd understand? And when they finally walked away, did you still believe you'd be fine? Let's find out what power could never buy. Manhattan, 2 years earlier. The marble lobby of the Ellison Group Tower echoed with the clicks of designer heels. Phones buzzed, elevators chimed, and behind the frosted glass doors on the 51st floor sat Dara Ellison, alone, yet orbiting a world most couldn't reach. Her schedule was stacked. Her inbox was managed. Her silence controlled. She didn't do birthdays. She didn't return voicemails. Her apartment was cleaned weekly by someone she never met. And on the wall of her office was a framed quote her mentor once gifted her: "Build, win, don't pause." She hadn't paused in 11 years. Dara wasn't just on the Forbes list. She was the list's quiet threat. Tech innovations, biotech ventures, and joint investment boards. Her reach extended across 6 time zones. Shareholders called her brilliant. Boardrooms called her necessary. Competitors called her untouchable. But none of them knew how loud her apartment was at night. Success had become her rhythm, but it had never become her peace. Vermont, 10 days that changed everything. She hadn't wanted to go. The digital detox retreat had been a last-minute booking. Her assistant Claire practically bribed her. 3 days, Dara. No email, no screens. You need it. She didn't need it. But she needed Claire to stop insisting. So she went. A 2-hour flight to Burlington. A silent van ride to a tucked-away lodge surrounded by white pines and muted snow. And that's where she met him. He was standing by the lodge's outdoor fire pit, wearing a brown wool jacket, black gloves, and a pair of boots that had clearly seen real work. He didn't speak when she arrived, just nodded once as he tossed more wood into the flames. Dara didn't recognize him, and that surprised her. She usually knew who was who in any room. The next morning, he ran the fire-building workshop. "I'm Jalen," he said simply. "I work with my hands, not scripts. You'll get more out of this if you stop thinking." Most laughed. Dara didn't. She folded her arms. But she listened, and by day 3, she was still listening. They didn't talk much at first. She watched him carve a handle into raw cedar. He offered her tea once, without asking if she drank it. She didn't, but she took the cup. He didn't ask where she was from, didn't care what she owned, and when she finally broke the silence, "So what do you do outside of this?" He looked up and said, "I build things that hold people, tables, cribs, cabinets, things that stay." It hit her harder than she expected. She built things too, but nothing that stayed. She followed him into the woods behind the lodge on the 6th day. Snow came down lightly. He didn't offer conversation, only a pine cone, which he handed to her mid-trail. "It's perfect," he said. "Not because it's untouched, but because it stayed through storms." That night, they talked by the fire, about silence, about peace, about how the world isn't always loud. Some of the best parts live quietly. She shared a little. Nothing about her companies, nothing about Geneva or Forbes. Just the ache of always being expected to do more. He listened. No fixing, no judgment, just the warmth she'd never been able to afford. She was supposed to leave on day 2. She stayed 10. No one had ever made her want to stop before. No one had ever made her breathe. As she packed that final morning, Jalen knocked on her cabin door. He didn't ask her to stay. He simply said, "Don't rush your life so fast that you forget to come back to it." She never forgot that line, or the fire that didn't just warm her hands, but softened something inside her chest. Back to Manhattan. The jet was warm, the champagne cold. Her phone exploded the second she turned it on. Board updates, time-sensitive closings, media requests, and yet, All she could think about was a man with hands stained by wood who hadn't asked for anything and somehow gave her everything. 3 weeks later, a single envelope arrived at her office. No return address, no branding. Inside was a hand-sketched blueprint of a cabin coffee table with a handwritten note on the back. I started carving something. If you ever slow down again, maybe you'll help me finish it. Her assistant asked if she should file it. Dara said no. She tucked it in her wallet instead, right behind her black card. She woke before sunrise. The sky outside her lodge window glowed pale blue, snow gently falling. For once, there was no flight to catch, no meeting to prep, no board to impress, only stillness. Dara lay in bed, listening to the fire crackling in the corner stove, thinking about the man who had quietly carved his way into her mind without ever trying to. Jalen was unlike anyone she had met. He had no hunger for the things that built her world. And maybe that's what made him feel like something real. She dressed slowly, layered warmth over her skin, and stepped into the cold. The snow came up to her calves, but her boots were steady. She didn't expect to see anyone. She didn't expect to find herself standing outside his workshop again either. Jalen opened the door before she knocked. He didn't greet her with words, just a nod and a slight tilt of his head. She stepped in. The air smelled of cedar and smoke. Tools lined the walls like an orchestra of work and purpose. A partially sanded chair sat in the center, next to a steaming mug she suspected wasn't his. "You always up this early?" she asked. He shrugged. Wood doesn't wait for ideal hours. She smiled at the quiet wisdom in his answer. She never worked without setting an agenda. He worked without permission. He handed her the mug. She took it without asking what was inside. They didn't speak for a while. He worked. She watched. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was trusted. He started sanding again, slow rhythmic strokes that echoed through the small space. After a while, she stepped closer. "Can I help?" He paused, looked at her, then handed her the block. She hesitated, then began. Her strokes were uneven, clumsy. Her hands knew devices and signatures, not pressure and grain. He didn't correct her. Instead, he adjusted her hands slightly, one palm over hers. His touch was firm but patient, the kind of guidance that didn't steal control, just offered direction. She looked up. He was already watching her. "Better," he said simply. She nodded, but her chest felt like it had learned something her mind hadn't caught up with yet. Later that day, they walked the trail again, this time side by side. The path curved toward a frozen stream. He stepped onto a wide, flat rock, then reached back for her hand. She paused. People didn't usually reach for her. They waited for her to lead, to command. But Jalen didn't wait. He simply offered. She took his hand. It was calloused, warm, real. When they reached the far side, he pointed toward a clearing. "I built a bench here last winter," he said, "for no one." Just felt like the forest needed something that listened back. They sat. Snowflakes landed softly on their coats. She turned to him. "Why haven't you asked what I do?" "I don't need to," he said. "You wear it like armor." She blinked, caught off guard. He didn't flinch. "I used to date someone who wore suits that cost more than my truck," he added. "Taught me something. Doesn't matter what people build if they never rest inside it." She didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. Instead, she sat beside him until the light began to fade, and her silence stopped feeling like an omission, and more like a choice. That night, at dinner, she sat closer to him. She laughed more. She answered when others asked about her past. Not the companies, not the titles. She told them about her mother's sewing machine, her first job in a bookstore, the scar on her left wrist from a broken glass she once refused help cleaning. He listened. Everyone else heard her words. Jalen heard her quiet. When the lodge lights dimmed, she didn't rush back to her cabin. She followed him outside again, stood near the fire pit, watching the orange glow flicker in his eyes. "You live here full time?" she asked. "Nearby," he said. 10 minutes out." I help build cabins in the off-season, teach kids sometimes. She nodded. I didn't expect to stay this long, she admitted. Neither did I, he said. He meant her, and she knew it. That night, she dreamt without deadlines. No emails, no alarms, no calendar blocks. Just wind through pine and firelight on a man who reminded her of something she didn't realize she'd been starving for. The next few days passed without plan. They walked, cooked together once. She burnt the rice. He didn't comment, just added more water and smiled. He fixed the door on her cabin when it stuck, left a carved spoon outside her window before breakfast. No notes, no pressure, just gestures. On the 9th night, she stood on his porch. He opened the door like he knew she'd be there. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. He poured her tea. She sat on the stool he built. They listened to the fire for hours. When she left the next morning, she didn't promise anything. He didn't ask. But something had shifted. Not spoken, just understood. She shook his hand. A firm, warm hold that lingered. As she turned to walk down the snowy path back to the transport van, he called out, "You breathe different now." She stopped, turned. "Don't lose it," he said. She didn't respond. But she held those words like a match in a dark tunnel. The plane that took her back to Manhattan was late. She didn't care. For the first time in years, she wasn't in a rush. And tucked inside her coat pocket was a pine cone. Small, weathered, beautiful. If this story feels familiar, pause for a moment. Have you ever met someone who changed your pace without asking you to change your life? If yes, tap like so. More people find this story. Share this with someone who once made you slow down. And tell us in the comments, have you ever walked away from something real without meaning to? Subscribe to Mr. Charles' Stories for stories where love teaches lessons money never could. She didn't tell anyone what had happened at the retreat. Not Claire, not the board, not even her mother. Some things weren't meant to be explained. They were meant to be felt and protected from interpretation. Her return to Manhattan was quieter than usual. No press briefings, no post-trip summaries. She walked through her penthouse differently, noticing the way the light hit the wood floors, how the air carried less warmth than she remembered. She opened her closet and pulled out a heavy coat she hadn't worn in years. It smelled like cedar and a memory she couldn't name. A week passed, then two. She didn't reach out to Jalen, and he didn't call, but the stillness he left inside her remained. It echoed in her mornings, whispered through her nights. At the office, her mind drifted. During investor calls, her thoughts looped back to fire pits and carved spoons. She missed the silence most, the one that didn't demand anything of her. She went back to the gym, started cooking again, not to eat, but to remember the rhythm of preparation. Even burnt rice tasted different now, less like failure, more like learning. On the third week, she received a box. No note, just a wooden frame, handcrafted, with a photo inside. It was from the retreat. Someone had snapped it without them knowing. Jalen was kneeling by the fire. She was watching him, hands in her coat pocket, smiling without realizing. She placed the frame on her desk. That evening, she closed her laptop at 6:07 p.m., something she hadn't done in 4 years. She didn't know what she was doing, only that it mattered. The next weekend, she flew back to Vermont, not for a visit, not for a statement, for air. She didn't tell Jalen, didn't even know if he was there. She checked into a quiet inn 2 towns over, walked the trails on her own, lit a fire in her rental cabin with the same technique he taught her, burned the first one, laughed to herself. The second time worked. She stayed for 3 days, left without looking for him. Sometimes, she told herself, being near someone without interfering is its own kind of respect. Back in the city, she started writing again, not articles, not emails, letters, to herself, to him, to moments. She kept them in a small leather book. One page held only one sentence. You reminded me what stillness feels like without loneliness. Spring came and went. They didn't speak. Summer approached. She went back. Same inn, same trail, same air. She passed by the lodge on a walk. A new group was there. Fresh faces, new voices. She stood at a distance, watching the fire pit. Then she saw him. He didn't see her. She didn't call out. She watched him move, calm, steady, unchanged. And then she left. But something inside her felt certain. She didn't need to rush the story. Good things weren't always meant to be held in both hands at once. Some needed to be earned by letting go. Fall arrived. Her company went public. For the first time, she didn't feel the thrill she used to. The money hit. The media glowed. She smiled for pictures, but when she returned to her penthouse, she stood in front of the same wooden frame, touched the edge, closed her eyes. The next day, she booked a return to the cabin. This time, she didn't stay at an inn. She rented a private home. She bought groceries, chopped vegetables the way he showed her. She still didn't text him. But she went to the general store 2 towns over and left a small package with the clerk. A note inside read, "For the one who reminded me that some things are better built in silence." She didn't sign it, didn't need to. The next morning, she found a pine branch left on her doorstep and a folded note beneath it. "You still rush your letters," that was all. She smiled. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't warmth. It was presence, and it was enough. The first time she saw him again, it wasn't planned. She was walking out of the local library, a rare stop she made when the city noise inside her head needed to be hushed. She wasn't looking for him, but there he was, outside, speaking with an older woman in a denim jacket, holding a small wooden box in his hand. He didn't notice her at first. She almost kept walking. Then, his eyes met hers. No flicker, no shift, just quiet recognition. She didn't smile, neither did he. But he walked toward her, slow and steady, like the ground between them didn't need to be rushed. "You're back," he said. "I didn't leave," she replied. He looked past her, then back into her eyes. "That's not what I meant." She knew. They stood in the silence again, the kind that used to hold them. "How long are you here this time?" he asked. "I don't know," she answered. "I stopped measuring time with my calendar." He gave a single nod, then handed her the small wooden box. "I made this after the first snowfall last winter. Didn't think you'd see it." She took it, opened it. Inside was a carved compass, wooden, delicate, hand-polished. No letters, no directions, just 4 smooth points. It didn't tell her where to go. It reminded her she could choose. "I don't expect anything," he said, "but I don't regret the waiting. I regret forgetting," she replied. "But I remember now." The words sat between them, not dramatic, not scripted, real. He motioned toward the trail by the woods. She followed, no talking, just footsteps in the frost. When they reached the clearing, the bench he once spoke of was still there, weathered, strong. They sat, no closeness, no distance. He handed her a thermos. "Still don't drink coffee?" "I do now," she said. He smiled for the first time. And just like that, winter didn't feel so cold. They stayed there for an hour, didn't talk about where she had been, or why he didn't chase her. They didn't owe each other history. They shared the moment. That was enough. When they returned to the edge of town, she stopped before getting into her rental. "I'm not the same," she said, "but I still have the same hands. I still rush. I still lead with my work." He nodded. "And I still carve things I hope will stay," he said. No promises, no confessions, but something passed between them, quiet and unfinished. She drove back to the cabin with the compass in her lap, turned it in her hands like it held more meaning than a deal ever had. That night, she cooked, not for him, for herself, but she made enough for 2, just in case. He didn't show up, and she didn't expect him to, but she left the porch light on. The next morning, his truck was parked at the edge of the trail. He wasn't on the porch. He hadn't come inside. But beside her door was a stack of firewood, fresh, dry, and neatly placed, with a note tucked between 2 logs. "Build the fire. I'll be around." She ran her fingers over the handwriting. No instructions, no agenda. He was still listening. So she lit the fire and waited, not for him to return, but for herself to stop guarding what never needed armor. She sat beside the window and watched the smoke rise. This time, she wasn't thinking about what came next, only about what it meant to stay. The plane touched down before sunrise. The skyline didn't greet her. It stared back, cold and impersonal. She stepped out of the jet and into the waiting car, but the silence in her chest didn't lift. Manhattan was awake. It always was, even in the dark. Her driver opened the door to her penthouse. She thanked him with a nod and walked in slowly, carrying nothing but a leather-bound journal and the wooden compass. The space looked exactly as she left it. Spotless, impressive, expensive, but sterile. She placed the compass on the edge of her kitchen island. It didn't look right there. She moved it to the fireplace mantel. Still didn't fit. Because nothing here felt like it had been built to hold someone like Jalen, or someone like the version of herself that had finally stopped running. She sat down. No champagne, no phone call, no news brief. Just the hum of silence wrapped around a life she wasn't sure she still wanted. The next morning, she walked into the Ellison Group boardroom. They stood when she entered. Smiles, applause, power. She nodded, took her seat at the head of the table, and began speaking. Her voice was steady. Her heart wasn't. She could hear herself from the outside, articulate, sharp, persuasive. But none of it felt like living. After the meeting, Claire approached her with a phone in one hand and a coffee in the other. "Congratulations again, Dara. That Singapore deal's already gone viral." Dara blinked. "Thanks," she said. Claire looked at her carefully. "You okay?" "Fine." The answer came fast. Too fast. Claire didn't push. She never did. That's why Dara trusted her. That afternoon, she sat in her office overlooking the city. She watched people move in lines, crosswalks, elevators, lobbies, always in motion, always in command, like she had always been. She glanced at the photo frame, the one of her and Jaden by the fire. She reached into her drawer and pulled out a sticky note. Wrote 3 words, "What stays matters." She stuck it behind the photo. Later that evening, she attended a gallery opening in Soho. Her name was on the sponsor list. Her dress was flawless. Her shoes were tailored. Her expression, rehearsed. Photographers clicked. Reporters circled. People praised her resilience, her portfolio, her eye for scalable innovation. She smiled. But the only thing she thought about was a bench in the snow, and a voice that once said, "Don't lose it." When she got home that night, she did something she hadn't done in years. She turned off her phone, sat on the floor, and cried. Not from pain, from recognition. She had built a world she no longer fit inside. And now, she had to decide if keeping it was worth the cost of staying lost. The next morning, Dara skipped her usual spin class and took a walk instead. No makeup, no assistant, no schedule. The city felt heavier when you walked it without a purpose. She passed familiar buildings with unfamiliar eyes. Coffee shops she hadn't stepped inside in years. Families rushing past with backpacks and half-eaten muffins. A little girl holding her dad's hand, dragging a paper snowflake behind her. Dara stopped for a moment and watched them disappear into the crowd. She turned into a bookstore, the kind that smelled like time. No one recognized her. She bought 2 blank journals and left without browsing. At home, she took the old sketch Jalen had sent, the blueprint for the table, and pinned it to the wall above her desk. She stared at it for a long time. A month passed. She still didn't reach out. She didn't want to disrupt the space he had created, and she didn't trust herself not to fill it with noise. Instead, she worked on herself like she used to work on deadlines. She started cooking, burnt the rice again, laughed this time. She called her mother more, went to fewer events. She didn't make it a statement, didn't post about it, didn't tell the board. She simply began changing the temperature of her own life. One evening, she opened her calendar and deleted a month's worth of meetings. Not postponed, deleted. Then she opened her email and replied to a foundation that had invited her to speak. "I'll come, but I want to talk about failure, not innovation." She got no response for 3 days. Then, one line, "We weren't expecting that. But maybe we needed." She smiled. Small, quiet, real. She began writing her talk, not about success, about the moment she realized she'd become the loneliest woman in the most crowded rooms. She told no one she was writing it. Only one person would understand it when it was done, and he hadn't asked for anything, which made her want to give him something honest. At the end of the second month, she sent him a letter. Not a long one, just a folded page, handwritten. "I'm not asking for anything. I just want you to know that the version of me you met, the quiet one, the slower one, she's still here. And this time, I'm protecting her." No return address, no signature. He'd know. A week later, a small envelope appeared at the front desk of her building. No name on the front. The doorman handed it to her with a raised eyebrow. Inside was a photo, a wooden table, the one from the sketch, finished. Beside it was a note. "I built it, but I left the last inch undone. You'll know why." She stared at it for a long time. She could hear his voice in those few words. She remembered the curve of the pencil in his hand, the firelight flickering on the walls of that lodge, the spoon he left without explanation. She picked up her phone, then set it down. She didn't need to call. She needed to go. The first time Dara spent Christmas at the cabin, it snowed for 3 days straight. She arrived late, her flight from New York delayed, her car rental missing, her gloves too thin for Vermont. But Jalen was waiting at the trailhead with an old thermos and 2 wool blankets. He didn't complain, didn't ask why she was late. He held out the thermos and said, "We've got time, no one's watching." She hadn't celebrated Christmas in a decade. Not really. Not without press calls, fundraisers, or gala invitations that had more cameras than candles. But that year 1, Jalen gave her one small gift, wrapped in newspaper, a smooth, hand-carved bowl. She tried to offer him something back, keys to an SUV she never drove, or a watch from a limited run in Italy. He shook his head. "You don't buy presents," he said. "You bring it." She'd never forgotten that. Each year after that, she returned. No makeup, no driver, no assistant, just her and a duffel bag with books, warm clothes in her hands, finally empty of things to give. They had their rhythm. He cooked breakfast. She made tea. He chopped wood. She read aloud while he worked. He built things. She journaled quietly beside him. They didn't talk about the city. They didn't talk about growth metrics or media rounds. They talked about snow levels, bird tracks in the yard, how the wind shifted differently in early December. It wasn't romance the way she'd once defined it. It was peace. It was her only real exhale each year. They didn't label it. She didn't ask for guarantees. He didn't ask for her heart. They shared time, and for 2 people who had built their lives around control. That was more honest than anything they could have signed. Year 2, she came with a new scarf, not designer. She bought it from a local vendor on the way up. He wore it the whole week. Year 3, she surprised him by arriving early. He wasn't home when she got to the cabin. She made the fire herself. He arrived at dusk and found her asleep on the rug beside the flame, boots still on. He didn't wake her, just covered her with a blanket and sat nearby until she stirred. They made no promises beyond December, but they never needed to. Until year 4, the year the invitation came in late October, Geneva, a once-in-a-lifetime merger that would shift the biotech market. She was requested by name. The deal was precise, sensitive, global, and it would close on Christmas Eve. Her assistant, Claire, caught the panic in Dara's voice the moment the date was confirmed. Should I decline? Dara stared at the screen, then at the compass sitting on her bookshelf, then at her calendar. "No," she said slowly. "Don't decline. Just I'll figure it out. Claire paused. He won't understand, will he? Dara didn't answer, because she didn't want to find out. She didn't tell Jalen. She didn't cancel. She didn't explain. She just let the silence stretch, hoping she could return in time to make it right. She booked a return flight for the 24th, landing in Burlington at 6:10 p.m. She told herself she could make it to the cabin by 8. She told herself he would still be awake. She told herself it would be okay. On December 21st, her driver loaded her bags into the jet at Teterboro. Dara stood on the tarmac, glancing at the sky as if it held some warning she couldn't yet read. By the time she landed in Geneva, the snow had already started falling back home. The meetings were precise, tense, powerful. Her name was on every headline within hours. The woman who closed Christmas. The deal that broke a ceiling. The face of power with perfect restraint. She smiled for the cameras, gave the right quotes, toasted with executives who couldn't spell Vermont. She didn't call Jalen. She told herself she'd explain everything in person. She told herself the fire would still be burning when she arrived. She told herself she'd kept her promise. The flight back was delayed by a weather front. She landed at 9:43 p.m. The roads were slow. Her rental slid twice on the turns. She reached the trailhead after midnight. His truck was gone. She walked the path anyway. The lights at the cabin were off. No fire. No sound. No porch light. She stood there for a long time, holding the scarf she had worn every year since year 2. She didn't knock. She didn't leave anything. She turned around. And for the first time in 4 years, she spent Christmas in a hotel suite, with room service and a roaring fireplace on the television screen. It was warm and completely empty. 3 days later, a package arrived at her penthouse. No name. Inside, a photo of the two of them at the cabin, the pine cone from their fall walk, a note on the back of a napkin from the bookstore they visited in year 1. You built everything but forgot to show up. She sat on the floor of her living room, still in her coat, and read the line over and over. He hadn't cursed her, hadn't shamed her. He had simply said the one thing she couldn't defend, and it broke her. Not because he was right, but because she had known it before he said it. She didn't go to work the next day, not because she was sick, not because she had meetings to avoid, because her hands wouldn't move. She sat on her bedroom floor, legs pulled close, the pine cone resting near her knee. That single object said more than any award she'd ever received. You were trusted, and you didn't come back. Outside her floor-to-ceiling windows, the city moved on. It always did. Traffic flowed. Stocks rose. Headlines changed. But inside her, something had stopped. She turned off her phone for 2 days. When she finally turned it on, there were messages from Claire. From legal. From her mother. But not from him. She didn't expect one. She didn't deserve one. The next week, she skipped Milan Fashion Week. Her face was on the banners, but her body stayed home. The week after that, she cancelled a board retreat in Aspen. She told them it was a scheduling conflict. The truth? She couldn't stand the snow. Not without him. She found herself walking the city differently. No more backseat rides. No tinted windows. She walked streets she used to ignore. Sat on park benches. Stared at hands held by couples walking past her. She wondered if any of them knew what it cost to be absent. She kept the photo he sent on her desk. Not in a frame, just lying flat, creased at the corners now. Like her, perfect on the outside, weathered underneath. She called her mother after midnight one evening. It had been a while. Her mother picked up on the second ring, voice groggy. "Is everything okay?" "No," Dara whispered. Her mother didn't speak. She waited. "I forgot something important," Dara said. "What did you forget, sweetheart?" "That presence isn't guaranteed." A pause. Then her mother spoke, gently, like always. "Sweetheart, it's easier to sign deals than say sorry. Which one are you choosing now?" Dara didn't answer. She stared at the ceiling and thought about Jalen's hands. How steady they had been. How sure. How still. She remembered how he had once said, "The most important part of carving is knowing when to stop." She never stopped, not once, until now. She got out of bed and opened her closet. Inside were coats she hadn't touched in years, bags with tags still on, shoes she'd never worn. She pulled out a donation box and began filling it, one item at a time. She didn't cry. She moved like someone returning a room they'd borrowed too long. She kept the scarf from the cabin, nothing else. At the bottom of a drawer, she found the leather-bound journal she'd started after their first year together. She hadn't touched it in months. She opened to the first page. "You reminded me what stillness feels like without loneliness." She turned to a fresh page and began writing. Not a letter, not a plea, a confession, not to send, but to speak, to herself, to what she forgot. She wrote until her wrist ached. Then she slept for the first time in weeks without waking at 3 a.m., in shame. The next morning, she took the day off. No calls, no heels, no press. She walked to the waterfront and stood by the railing as the wind bit her face. And then she whispered to no one, "I'm sorry I treated love like it was flexible." A child nearby threw a snowball into the river. The splash didn't echo, neither did her apology, but she felt it land. That afternoon, she searched for his business online. It was gone, moved. The website link redirected to an empty page. She called the lodge. A new voice answered. "Jalen Price?" she asked. "I think he moved," the woman said. "Doesn't work with us anymore. Do you know where he went?" "Sorry, I don't." Dara hung up and stared out the window. She hadn't lost a man. She had lost her place. The only place where power didn't matter. She didn't cry. Not then. She just sat very still and said nothing, which was what he had done the night she didn't show up. The same silence, now shared, now understood. She didn't book another flight that winter. She stayed grounded. For the first time in her adult life, Dara Ellison stopped moving. January passed without a single boardroom visit. February arrived with snowstorms in the city, and for once, she watched them instead of outpacing them. She gave up her corner office, moved to a smaller one. Her team was confused. Claire asked her, "Are you okay?" She said yes, but she knew she wasn't. Not yet. Still, something in her posture had shifted, not broken, softened. She started walking to work. Rain or not, she packed her own lunch. She took 2 meetings a day instead of 9. And she deleted the global chat app she once lived inside. At night, she journaled. Her entries were less about outcomes now, more about presence, texture, tone, what the subway smelled like. The laugh she overheard from a woman on 48th Street. A compliment from the barista who didn't know her name but noticed her coat was different. She liked those things, the quiet human parts, but nothing filled the space where Jalen used to sit, in memory, in spirit, in winter. She stopped expecting him to call. She began learning how to live with the absence like a stone in her shoe, never crushing, never ignored. One evening in March, she found the compass again. She'd placed it in a drawer she rarely opened. The carved points were still smooth. The center had a small ridge, imperfect, like it was waiting for something else. She ran her thumb across it and sat back in her chair. The cabin. She hadn't seen it since. It had been listed for sale. That much she remembered. She hadn't checked back. Maybe she was afraid it would be gone. Maybe she was more afraid it was still there. The next morning, she called a real estate contact in Vermont. Gave no name, just the address. The woman on the other end recognized it. Off market, she said, but technically still unsold. It changed hands though. Different owner now. Dara held her breath. Do you know who? An LLC, but looks like a private sale, paid in full. Closed last summer. Dara thanked her and hung up. She stared at the phone. He had let go of it. That meant something. She didn't want the cabin. She wanted to return to it. There was a difference. The following week, she booked a small house nearby. Remote, quiet, not the same as his, but close enough to feel air that had once made her honest. She packed a single bag, one coat, a pair of boots she hadn't worn in 2 years. She didn't tell anyone. She arrived just before sunset. The town looked the same. The bakery on the corner, the bookstore with the creaky door, the trail that led nowhere unless you knew where it went. She didn't rent a car this time. She walked. Snow crunched beneath her with the same sound she remembered. The cold settled on her cheeks, but it wasn't harsh. She found the cabin by memory, not map. There was a new fence, same tree swing, different mailbox name, but his truck was there. Her stomach tightened. She stood across the road, not ready to approach. She didn't have a plan. After 10 minutes, she walked back to her rental. That night, she didn't sleep much. She thought of the last time she'd stood in that same snow, of what she hadn't said, of what he hadn't asked. In the morning, she wrote a letter. Not an apology, not a declaration, just a sentence. I didn't forget you. I just forgot how to protect what couldn't be replaced. She folded it, walked the same path back. She didn't knock. She didn't wait. She slipped it into the mailbox and turned to leave. She had almost made it to the bend when she heard the sound. Footsteps, snow shifting, a door creaking open. She turned. Jalen stood in the doorway, older, stronger, same eyes. He didn't say her name. He didn't look surprised. You still talk like you're writing contracts, he said. Dara almost smiled. It's all I've known. He stepped aside, left the door open, and said nothing. She walked back, stopped at the porch. He didn't move. She took the step herself, and for the first time in 2 years, she entered a room that didn't require her to be anyone but present. Inside, it was quiet, not cold, just quiet. There was no fire, but the wood was stacked. No music, but she heard her breath settle. He closed the door gently. They didn't hug, they didn't explain. She walked to the table in the corner, the same one they'd once sanded together. He had finished it, except for one edge, left raw. She ran her hand across it. You remember? She said softly. I never forgot, he replied. They sat at the table, nothing between them but stillness. She looked up. I don't expect anything. He shook his head. But you're here now, he said, and she nodded. Because presence wasn't owed, but it could be earned, one winter at a time. She didn't stay the night, not because she wasn't welcome, not because he asked her to leave, but because she understood now. Showing up wasn't the same as staying. She needed to let it grow, not grip it tight again. They sat for nearly an hour at the old table. She didn't check her phone once. He didn't ask questions she couldn't answer. There was warmth, but not comfort, not yet. He poured tea into 2 mugs she remembered from their 3rd Christmas. One had a chipped handle. He gave that one to her. She smiled. He didn't explain, and she didn't ask. Some memories don't need words. After the tea, she stood. I should go, she said. He didn't argue. He didn't reach for her. He simply walked to the door and opened it. The cold met her without resistance. She turned before stepping off the porch. Will you be here this week? She asked. He shrugged. I live here. She nodded. No goodbye, no expectation, just the shared knowledge that they were no longer frozen strangers. She walked back through the trees, boots crunching softly. At her rental, she sat by the fire she built herself. This time, it didn't burn too hot. It held steady, like her. That night, she wrote again, not to him, to herself. A simple reflection. Love isn't erased, but it can go quiet when we stop listening. She slept better than she had in months. In the morning, she returned to town, stopped by the bookstore. The owner had changed, but the creaky door hadn't. She bought 2 books, one on wood joinery, one on emotional boundaries. She placed both on the kitchen table when she got home. Not everything needed to be read now, but they needed to be there. That afternoon, she baked. It wasn't complicated, just bread, something she could knead with her hands. Shape, watch, rise. The smell reminded her of slow Sundays she never used to allow herself. As the sun dipped, she stepped onto her porch and looked out toward the tree line. She didn't expect him. So when she saw his figure moving through the snow, quiet, tall, sure, she stood still. He stopped at the edge of the property, didn't wave, didn't call out, just held up a small canvas bag, then turned and placed it at the foot of the swing, walked away. She waited 5 minutes before going to it. Inside, a folding knife with a carved handle, her initials on one side, and on the other, "Start again, but don't rush." She held the knife in her hand for a long time, ran her thumb over the curve of the wood. It fit. The next morning she walked to his cabin, knocked once. He opened, no surprise. She held out a loaf of bread wrapped in a tea towel. "It might be terrible," she said. He took it. "If it is, we'll eat it anyway." She stepped inside again. Familiar, but not assumed. He sliced the bread carefully, handed her a piece. It was a little burnt. She laughed. "You didn't toast it yet." He smirked. "Didn't need to. Burnt's how you start everything." She shook her head, smiling. They ate in silence. This time, the silence felt shared. Not a space between, a space within. After they finished, he pulled something from the shelf. The journal she once left behind. She hadn't even remembered doing so. It had a pine needle tucked between pages. He handed it to her. She opened it. Inside were her words, her handwriting, her beginning. He pointed to the last page. It was blank. "You want it back?" He shook his head. "It's yours." But it never stopped sitting here. She looked down, then back at him. "You kept it?" He nodded. "I don't throw out things that meant something." She closed the cover, and with a quiet voice said, "I'd like to finish it." Slowly, he leaned back in his chair. "You've got time." That evening, they sat on the porch again. No fire, just breath in the cold air. She reached for his hand, not to hold it, to rest hers beside it. He didn't move, but he didn't pull away. And that was more than she hoped for. Not a restart, not a full return, but a presence rebuilt, one still evening at a time. Have you ever lost someone, not because you didn't care, but because you showed up too late? If this chapter stirred something in you, take a second to like this video. Share it with someone who taught you patience. And tell us in the comments, do you believe relationships can heal after distance? Subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories for more moments where love grows slowly and silence finally speaks. Dara didn't move into the cabin. She returned to her rental each night, sometimes carrying bread, sometimes carrying nothing but the quiet. She didn't ask if he wanted her there, and Jalen never asked what she expected. They simply shared time, gently, with no names for what they were becoming again. The town didn't notice her. That helped. She wasn't the billionaire here. She wasn't the keynote speaker or the board chair. She was the woman who walked to the bakery every morning, who sometimes bought 2 pastries and sometimes bought none, who lingered by the window display of wood carvings she didn't need. Jalen kept his routines. He worked. He built. He visited the town hardware store once a week and helped an elderly neighbor stack her firewood every other Sunday. They didn't fall into a rhythm. They made one, different than before, wiser, with less reaching, more resting. She stopped trying to be useful. He stopped trying to keep his distance. One afternoon, she showed up at the cabin with a book on joinery. He glanced at the cover and smirked. "You trying to compete with me now?" "No," she said. "I'm trying to understand how you think." That silenced him. She sat across from him at the long table and read aloud while he worked. They did that for 3 days in a row. She burned her tongue on tea. He handed her a napkin before she could flinch. They said nothing about the moment. On the 4th day, she didn't show up. Not because she was upset, not because anything had changed. She just wanted to give the silence back to him, to let him breathe without her shadow in it. That night, he left a folded piece of paper at her door. No note, just a line of pencil sketches, the unfinished table, her initials carved faintly in the center beam. She ran her fingers across the image. He hadn't forgotten the design. He'd just paused the build. The next day, she walked into his shop and set the sketch on the workbench. "Can I carve it?" He didn't look up. "Only if you're not afraid to mess it up." She rolled up her sleeves. "I've already done that once." He smiled. It was small, but it was the kind of smile that reached his eyes this time. They worked together in silence. Her lines were uneven. His were precise. They didn't correct each other. The wood didn't need to be perfect. It needed to hold. That evening, she brought soup. He added too much pepper. She didn't complain. They ate on the floor beside the stove, backs against the wall. She leaned her head back. "Do you remember what you said when I asked if you lived here full time?" He looked at her. "You said you lived nearby, that you helped build cabins and taught kids sometimes." He nodded. "Still do." "I thought you were hiding." "I was." She turned toward him. "Are you still?" He didn't answer for a long time. Then he looked down at his hands. "No, but I'm not sure what to offer someone who's lived that far away from me for so long." She didn't touch him. She didn't insist. "I'm not asking for anything finished," she said. "Just a place where I'm not erased." His jaw tightened slightly. "Not from resistance, from memory." "You never were," he said. "But I didn't know how to stay open after waiting like that." She nodded. "I didn't ask you to." "I know." They sat there, breathing together. No next move, just presence. She stood after a while and gathered the dishes. He didn't offer to help. She didn't expect him to. But as she walked to the sink, he said quietly, "I started making a chair." She turned. "For what?" "For someone who shows up without asking for the ending first." She didn't reply. She dried the bowls and set them down softly. Then she walked over, placed a hand on his shoulder, and left it there, just long enough to say, "I hear you." Then she left. That night, she didn't journal. She sat by the window, watching snow drift down, and she whispered the words she hadn't dared say out loud. "If love returns, let me be steady enough to hold it this time." The next morning, she woke up before the frost melted off the windows. She brewed her own tea this time, not because she preferred it, but because she wanted to do something slow with her hands. Her phone buzzed once, a call from Singapore. She let it ring, then silence again. Outside, the town was quiet, the kind of quiet that made space for thinking without pressure. She wrapped a scarf around her neck and walked, not toward the cabin, not toward town, just forward. There was no destination, only air she could finally breathe without defending it. At the edge of the wooded path, she found the stream again, the one they had walked past in their first winter. The bench he built still stood, though aged by the seasons. The wood was darker, but the strength remained. She sat, closed her eyes, and listened. Birdsong, wind pushing through pine, the creak of her own coat as she shifted. Then footsteps, slow, familiar. She didn't turn. "You're in my spot," Jalen said quietly. She smiled, but kept her eyes closed. "You never marked it." "I didn't think I needed to." He sat beside her. No tension, just shared stillness. "I used to come here after you left," he said after a while, "not to blame you. Just to remember something quiet." She nodded. "I used to build appointments over the memory of this place." He glanced at her. I thought if I worked hard enough, I could earn back the peace I left behind." He didn't speak for a while. "Then, you don't earn peace. You choose it. Then you keep choosing it." She looked down at her hands. "They used to feel powerful," she said. "Now they just feel human." He looked at them, then at her. "That's better." She let the words sink in. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket. A rough sketch. Another bench. Wider. Deeper. Built for two. "I'm thinking of rebuilding this one," he said. "It's weathered." She reached out, took the paper. "You want help?" He shrugged. "If it's slow." She folded the paper and slipped it into her coat. I don't know how to go slow without measuring progress. Then don't measure. She looked at him. He meant it. They sat for a long time. As the sun climbed, the snow started to melt in small patches. Water ran gently through the stream, quiet but steady. He stood first, didn't offer a hand. She didn't need one. She stood too. As they walked back through the trees, their steps matched without intention. At the fork in the path, she paused. I have to go back next week, she said. He didn't react. Just for 3 days, she added. An awards thing. He still didn't speak. I'm not asking for approval, she clarified. I know. She waited, then asked, do you want me to come back? He looked straight ahead, then turned to her. I don't want you to keep leaving. That was enough. She nodded and walked the rest of the way beside him. When they reached his porch, she didn't go in. Instead, she placed the folded sketch on his railing. You don't have to wait this time, she said. Just carve your side. I'll meet you halfway. He nodded, didn't smile, but something behind his eyes softened. She walked away without turning back, and for once, she didn't second-guess the silence behind her. That night, she returned to the cabin she rented and lit a fire without instructions. The flame caught quickly, steady, earned. The city didn't feel the same when she landed. The noise hadn't changed. The people hadn't slowed. The buildings still stood like monuments to ambition. But Dara didn't walk as fast. She didn't take the call that came in before the car door closed. She didn't reply to the 15 flagged emails her assistant had sorted by urgency. She looked out the tinted window, watching the familiar blur of lights and steel. Passed by and whispered quietly to herself, I'm only here for 3 days. That was the promise. To herself, to him, to what they hadn't yet named. Claire met her in the penthouse lobby. You've lost weight, Claire said before thinking. Dara smiled faintly. I've lost urgency. Claire looked puzzled, but she didn't press. Inside, everything was as she left it. The same folded throws, the same untouched wines, the same leather chair no one ever sat in. She unpacked lightly. A single black dress for the gala, no jewelry, no heels she couldn't walk in. The awards event was on a Friday. By Tuesday, she already missed the sound of snow under her boots. The city sounded like negotiation. Vermont sounded like clarity. She didn't say that out loud. Wednesday morning, she arrived at the office for the first time in 6 weeks. The hallway greeted her with murmurs and straightened backs. Eyes followed her, respectful, curious. She entered the glass-walled conference room with quiet steps. Everyone rose. She nodded once and took her seat. The meeting began. They talked projections, acquisitions, tech plays in emerging markets. Dara spoke when needed, not a second more. Her words were measured, not guarded, intentional. At one point, the CFO leaned toward her and asked, Is everything all right? She looked at him, then said clearly, I'm practicing stillness. He blinked. Excuse me? I said I'm learning not to fill every space with my voice. The room went silent for a beat too long. Then Claire spoke. Her numbers speak for her. That closed the moment, but not the shift. After the meeting, Dara stepped into her office. She opened her drawer and pulled out the compass, still smooth, still unfinished. She held it in her palm and watched the skyline. She didn't feel powerful. She felt aware, and maybe that was better. That night, she skipped dinner with a foreign investor. She cooked pasta in her penthouse instead, burned the garlic, laughed at herself, then sat cross-legged on the floor, plate in lap, flipping through her old journals. Her handwriting had changed, less sharp, more honest. She stopped at an entry she didn't remember writing. When he looked at me, I didn't have to defend my choices. He let me rest without earning it. She placed the journal down and stared at the ceiling. The stillness in her chest didn't feel unfamiliar now. It felt earned. The following day, she visited her mother. The small brownstone hadn't changed. Her mother met her at the door with the same long hug. The kind that didn't rush her in. Over tea, her mother finally asked. "What's shifted?" Dara didn't pretend to misunderstand. "I forgot who I was outside of performance." Her mother stirred sugar into her cup. "And now, I'm building a bench," Dara said. Her mother raised an eyebrow. "That's not a metaphor?" Dara smiled. "It's both." Her mother reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "I'm proud of what you built. But I'm prouder of what you walked away from." Dara looked down at their hands. "So am I." They sat for hours. No agenda. Just warmth. When she returned home, she opened her calendar and deleted 3 upcoming events. Then she opened her laptop and drafted a letter to her board. Short, direct. "Beginning in the spring quarter, I'll be stepping down from day-to-day operations and moving into a strategic advisory role. The company is solid, the vision is clear, and it's time I honored what I've neglected too long, presence." She hit send before fear could reach her. Then she closed the laptop and let out a breath that had waited years to escape. Friday came. The award was handed to her by a woman who'd once been her fiercest competitor. Dara Ellison, the presenter said, has always defined what it means to lead with precision. Tonight, we recognize her for redefining what it means to lead with grace. Polite applause followed. She walked to the mic in a black dress with no sparkle, looked out over the sea of ambition, and said simply, "I accept this, not as a symbol of what I've done, but as a reminder of what I almost lost chasing it." She didn't read from notes. She didn't thank a list of names. She closed with one line: "May we all learn the value of stillness before someone we love teaches it by walking away." Then she stepped down and walked out, not to her car, but into the cold, alone, wrapped her scarf tighter, and felt no need to speak. Some wins didn't need to be shared, they needed to be lived. She flew back on a Monday. No driver, no press. She didn't tell anyone except Claire. Before leaving, she dropped a letter on Claire's desk. "Schedule?" Claire asked, flipping through the envelope. "There isn't one," Dara said. "Not anymore." Claire nodded, but her eyes lingered. "Did you find what you were looking for?" Dara tilted her head. "I stopped looking." She left with no luggage beyond a carry-on. One book, one scarf, one pair of boots, and the compass. The flight was quiet. Her seatmate slept the whole way. At the small Vermont airport, she refused the rental upgrade, took the base model sedan, and drove herself back through the hills. The trees still wore snow like they did every winter, but this time, she didn't feel swallowed by it. She stopped once on the road, not to take a call, but to breathe. At a small market just outside of town, she picked up fresh eggs and bread. The clerk didn't know her, didn't ask for a photo, didn't comment on the headlines she'd quietly stepped out of. She liked that. The cabin she rented was still hers. She lit a fire slowly. No rush, no expectation. That evening, she didn't go to Jalen. She waited, not for him to reach out, but for herself to arrive fully. She sat by the fire and read her journal, turned to the last entry she'd written before leaving. "If I ever come back, I want to be different, not new, just more honest." She smiled. The next morning, she woke before the sun, made tea, wrote a single line on a piece of parchment paper, "Still choosing peace. Still choosing you." She folded it, wrapped it with twine, tucked it inside the carved compass box Jalen once gave her. Then she walked the trail. The cabin looked the same. The porch was cleared, the railing sanded. A new bench sat beside the tree swing, but the truck wasn't there. She didn't knock. She placed the box on the porch step. No note, no knock, just a return. Then she turned and walked back. She didn't expect him to find it that day. She didn't wait by the window. She chopped carrots for stew, watered the plant near the door, answered an email from a young founder asking for advice. That evening, she sat by the fire again. And when a knock came at 7:23 p.m., she didn't flinch. She stood, opened the door. He didn't speak. He held the box in his hand. "Still choosing me?" he asked, eyes steady. She nodded once. Every time he stepped inside, not like a guest, like someone who had once left his silence here and found it waiting, she made him a bowl of stew. They ate in quiet. After the dishes were rinsed, he stood by the mantel, looking at the photo she'd brought with her, him sanding the table, her beside him, smiling without knowing. He touched the edge of the frame. "I didn't know you kept that. I didn't know I needed it until I almost lost it." He turned. "Are you back for good?" She hesitated. "I'm not back the way I left, but yes." He looked at her closely, then sat down at the table. "Let's finish the last inch." She nodded, pulled her chair beside his. They worked until the moon moved high. One line, one notch, one breath at a time. No music, just steady hands on a shared rebuild. And when they finished, he didn't stand. He looked at her and simply said, "You showed up." She leaned in, not to speak, just to rest her forehead against his. And in that closeness, there was no performance, only presence. They didn't talk about labels. There were no declarations, no questions about what this was, no definitions scribbled on napkins or slipped between shared breakfasts. They woke up with the sun and spent mornings in parallel silence, her writing, him sanding, sometimes just sipping tea side by side. It was enough. Sometimes he cooked, she cleaned. Other times she made simple stews or pulled fresh herbs from a planter she'd moved to the porch. They didn't choreograph it, they let it form. He still kept space. He didn't always say where he was going when he left in the afternoons, and she didn't ask. Not because she didn't care, because she understood now that closeness isn't surveillance, it's trust, and he gave it back slowly, one gesture at a time. One evening, after a quiet dinner, he brought out an old box from the back room. Inside, sketches, small tools, 2 photos. One was of his father, the other was a bench, the first he ever built. He handed her the photo. "Ugly thing," he said, but it stayed standing. She studied it. The lines were crude, the finish uneven, but it was clearly built with care. "It's beautiful," she said softly. He looked at her. "You really believe that?" "I do." He paused. "I built it for my mother. She never sat on it, said it was too rough. She gave it to a neighbor instead." Dara didn't rush to fill the silence. He went on. "I didn't build anything again for 2 years." She nodded. "I once gave a speech that went viral for the wrong reason. I didn't speak in public again until I was practically forced." They shared a smile, then sat in the quiet again, the kind that didn't close over them, just allowed them to breathe. That night, he walked her back to her rental. He didn't hold her hand, but when they reached the porch, he looked at the potted herbs. "You've been planting again." She shrugged. "They survive if I don't overmanage them." He smiled, then stepped down and left without another word. The next morning, a bag of fresh soil sat on her porch, and beside it, a folded piece of paper. "Maybe this time, let them grow wild." She laughed quietly. He was teasing her, but it was layered with something more. The next few days passed like this, slow, steady, alive with care but not control. She found herself humming while she cleaned. He started leaving the door unlocked when he worked in the shop. Neither mentioned it, but it mattered. One afternoon, while walking back from the general store, she saw him talking to a young boy outside the hardware shop. He was crouched down, showing the boy how to sand a small block. The boy smiled like the world had been handed to him. She stood across the street and watched, unseen. And in that moment, she realized he hadn't built his silence to keep her out. He'd built it to protect something precious, something he shared only with those who didn't try to own it. She turned around, didn't call out, didn't wave. She went home and wrote a single line in her journal. He shares himself with the world without needing to be known. I once needed to be known by everyone before I shared anything. That night, he came over with a bag of apples. She baked. The pie burned slightly on one edge. He ate 2 slices anyway. They didn't call it a date, but it was the first time they sat on the porch together under a shared blanket, not touching, just close. She fell asleep with her head on his shoulder. He didn't move for an hour. When she woke, he said nothing, just stood, kissed the top of her head gently, and whispered, "You're becoming something you were always meant to be." She didn't cry, but her chest ached in the best way, because for once, she was showing up in her life instead of performing it, and she was being seen, without explanation. The porch became their favorite place, not because of the view, though it was beautiful, because it was where nothing had to be said. Some mornings, he was already out there when she arrived. Coffee steaming in a chipped mug, his boots resting on the top step, a sketchbook on his knee. She never asked what he was drawing. He never offered. But some days when she left, he folded the page and slipped it into her coat pocket. Sketches of trees, of benches, of hands, holding things gently. She kept them all, pinned them on the wall of the small cabin she still called hers, even though she rarely slept there now. That week, they began building something together again. Not a table, not a chair, a frame. Jalen had found 4 slabs of wood he'd stored years ago, warped slightly at the edges but still strong. He laid them out on the workbench. "You remember what to do?" "I remember enough to ruin it." He handed her the chisel. "Good. That's how I started." They spent hours shaping the wood, not rushing, not perfecting. She chipped one edge. He didn't flinch. He said, "We'll sand that into the design." That became their metaphor for the week. Anytime something bent, broke, or frayed, they just said it. "We'll sand it into the design." By the 3rd evening, the frame was ready. She looked at it, palms covered in dust, and whispered, "It doesn't look like yours." "That's the point," he said. They carried it inside together and leaned it against the wall behind the table. It wasn't hung yet, but it was there, waiting, a piece of their rebuild. That night, they sat by the fire, a little closer than before. No blanket between them, no distance either. She leaned her head against his shoulder again. He didn't move. After a while, she spoke softly. "Sometimes I still wake up thinking I need to fix something." He turned his head slightly toward her. "Do you?" "No," she said. "But it's hard to believe peace doesn't need earning." He nodded. "It needs choosing." They sat like that until the fire dimmed. When she stood to leave, he didn't walk her back. She didn't expect him to. But as she reached for the door, he said quietly, "I'm glad you stayed longer this time." She paused, then looked at him. "I'm not staying." He looked up. "I live here now." His eyes searched hers. "You mean it?" She nodded. "But on my own terms. I'm not moving into your cabin. I'm not looking for us to become what we were." His face stayed neutral, but his shoulders softened. "I don't want what we were." She took a breath. "I want what we're becoming." He stood, walked over, touched her chin lightly, lifting her gaze to his. "That's better than what I hoped for." She placed her hand over his heart for just a second, felt the steady rhythm, then walked out into the cold night. She didn't wear gloves. She didn't feel the chill. She walked slowly back to her place, looking up at the stars as if they were listening. When she got home, she sat at her kitchen table and opened her journal. She didn't write about him. She wrote about herself. "I am no longer waiting to be chosen. I'm building something worth choosing with my own hands." She placed the pen down and looked at her unfinished wall. Then she stood, walked to her shelf, and pulled the photo of the table, the one they'd built the first winter. She placed it into the frame. It didn't quite fit, but she left it anyway, because not everything that matters fits neatly. Some things simply stay. The days grew longer. Snow melted slower this year, but neither of them rushed the thaw. Their pace had found them, and it stuck. Dara spent her mornings in the small garden behind her cabin. The soil was still stiff with cold, but she worked it gently, mixing in compost, breaking apart roots from seasons past. Jalen didn't help. He watched from a distance sometimes, leaning against a tree or soaring through timber near his shop. He never offered advice. She never asked for it. But one morning, she found a small stack of planters on her porch, handcrafted, lined with waterproofed bark and a note taped to the top. These don't need perfection to grow what matters. She smiled and placed them by the kitchen window. They didn't talk every day, but they saw each other almost daily. Some days, it was a nod at the market. Other days, a full evening on the porch with soup and tea and the sound of rain pattering against the roof. No titles, no schedule, no permission slips needed. She hadn't lived this quietly since before her name was on walls, and it felt like freedom. One afternoon, she received a call from a speaking agency in California. They wanted her to headline a summit on leadership and self-reinvention. 200 executives. Global live stream. Big ticket. She didn't answer. She walked the entire trail behind her cabin, stopped by the frozen pond, sat on the log where she and Jalen once carved initials that neither of them mentioned out loud. When she got home, she returned the call. "I appreciate the offer," she said, "but my definition of reinvention doesn't fit on a stage anymore." They asked if she'd reconsider. She didn't. That evening, she told Jalen about it while stirring soup. "You could have owned that stage," he said. "I used to think that mattered. And now," she looked at him, "now, I think I'd rather keep my peace than trade it for applause." He didn't answer, just set 2 bowls on the table. She didn't need him to say anything. He was already listening. Later that week, he asked her to come with him to a nearby town. "Tool supplier," he said. She nodded. But when they arrived, it wasn't just a supplier. There was a small event, a showcase of regional artisans, people displaying handcrafted tables, chairs, utensils, some familiar faces, others new. Jalen didn't lead her in by the hand. He walked beside her. They browsed slowly. He talked to people. She stayed quiet. But when someone asked who she was, he said, "A friend. Someone I trust." She smiled at that, because he didn't introduce her with a label. He offered her something better, belonging. They left with 3 new carving tools and a bundle of old newspapers. In the car, she looked over at him. "You don't usually bring people to things like that. I don't usually have someone worth sharing that part with." She looked forward again, quiet, then whispered, "Thank you." They drove the rest of the way in silence. But it wasn't heavy. It was steady. Back at the cabin, she helped unload the tools, placed them in the shop on the bench they'd refinished together. As she was about to leave, she turned. "Would you ever consider teaching again?" He looked surprised. "To who?" "To women," she said. "To people like me, who've spent their lives building with nothing but their names." He thought for a moment, then shrugged. "Only if they're willing to make a mess." She laughed. "Then you'd have a full class." They stood there, not touching, but close. "You thinking of starting something?" he asked. "I'm thinking of unlearning something," she replied. He smiled. "Then maybe I'll build the tables." She paused, then said softly, "And I'll bring the ones who never thought they belonged at them." He didn't say anything, but he leaned forward and pressed a light kiss to her forehead. Not a promise, not a possession, just presence. That night, she wrote the first outline for a mentorship retreat. Not for executives, not for press, for women who had led too long with silence and armor. She named it Found. The word came to her quickly, because that's what this had been. Not a love story in the traditional sense, but a return to earth, to breath, to self, and now, maybe, to each other. The name stayed with her. Found. It didn't sound like a brand. It sounded like something returned to its rightful place. She let it live in her notebook for 3 days before she spoke it out loud again. When she finally did, it was while handing Jalen a mug of tea. "I've been thinking," she said. He raised a brow. "I know," he replied. "You do that a lot." She gave him a look. "I'm starting something." He sipped, then nodded slowly. "What kind of something?" "A place, not a program, not a pitch deck." He waited. She continued. "For women who've been told their value is in how hard they push, I want to give them a space to stop performing, to carve something real." His face didn't move, but his eyes did. "That sounds like something people won't understand." She smiled. "That's how I know it matters." He set down the mug. You already have a place to do it. Not yet. He stood, walked to the window, stared out at the ridgeline. There's a barn past the south trail. Needs repair. It's too much for one person, not enough for a business. But maybe. He turned. She met his gaze. Maybe it's enough for something small that matters. Her breath caught. She didn't answer immediately, then nodded. Can we go see it tomorrow? Wear boots, he said. That was his yes. The next morning they hiked up to the barn together. It was weathered, leaning slightly, but still strong. 2 horses had once lived there. Now, it was empty, except for broken tools and the scent of memory. She stood in the center, arms folded, boots crunching on hay. It's quiet, she said. Too quiet? She shook her head. Just enough. He watched her take it in. The beams, the light through the rafters, the way her fingers rested on the wood. This isn't about rebuilding my brand, she said. It's about rebuilding people. I know. They walked the perimeter slowly. She made mental notes. Reading corners, fire circle, woodshop benches, no Wi-Fi, only connection. Real ones. He stopped near the door. You sure you're ready for people again? She turned. I'm not leading this like I used to. I'm holding space. Big difference. The biggest. He looked at the barn one more time, then nodded. I'll start drawing the frame. She reached for his hand, just once, gently. You're a part of this. He didn't answer with words, but he squeezed her fingers lightly. That night, they sat at her kitchen table. She pulled out her laptop. He didn't tease her for it. She opened a blank document and typed only one line. A place where who you are matters more than what you've built. He looked over her shoulder. Keep that. She did. Later, she opened the drawer and pulled out the compass. He noticed it had been polished. She placed it between them. You think we ever finish things like this? She asked. No, he said. But we can keep turning in the right direction. She smiled, placed her hand over his, then left it there. Neither of them pulled away. Not because it was perfect, because it was chosen. That night, when he walked her to the door, she paused on the porch, looked at him, not as the man she once hurt, but as the man who stayed still enough for her to return to herself. Thank you, she said. For what? For not rushing me. I couldn't have, he said. I needed the slowness too. They stood in the quiet. Then she leaned forward and kissed him softly. Not long, not performative. Just enough to say, I'm here. Still. Spring came without announcement. No dramatic thaw, no burst of color. Just warmer mornings, softer winds, and a steadiness that matched the rhythm they had found together. Dara didn't move back into the city. She didn't call it leaving either. Her name still sat on company filings. Her email still worked. Her face still showed up in articles she hadn't approved. But her mornings were different now. Tea, soil, chisel dust. She still worked, but on things that lasted longer than the news cycle. She read a quote aloud one day, sitting on the porch with Jalen. Legacy isn't what they remember you for. It's what they can hold after you're gone. He didn't respond right away, then said, I used to think my legacy would be 1,000 tables, but now I think it might be just one, if someone sits at it. She turned her eyes toward him. I used to think mine would be in patents, shares, platforms. He raised an eyebrow. And now, she smiled. I think it might be in how quietly I loved after learning how loudly I used to prove myself. That night, they shared a meal with neighbors for the first time. No one knew the full story, only that she'd shown up one winter and hadn't left. They brought wine. Jalen brought bread. Dara brought quiet laughter. Later, someone asked how they met. Dara looked to Jalen. He said, we met in the middle of our noise. She added, and learned how to listen. It was enough. Back at the cabin, they sat under the stars. No fire, just a blanket and soft conversation. She reached into her coat and handed him an envelope. What's this? Something I need you to see. He opened it. Inside was a draft layout, found, the retreat. retreat, the space, the mission, plans for the barn, sketches of furniture, notes on sensory design, flow, rest. He turned the pages slowly. You've been working. I've been waiting for the right time to finish. He kept reading. When he looked up, she met his eyes. I want you to build the doors. He blinked. The doors? They'll be the first thing they see, the first thing they touch. I want them to be honest. He nodded. I'll do it. She breathed in. He set the plans down. I want something too, he said. She waited. For you to put your name on the sign. She tilted her head. I don't want the spotlight. It's not for that. It's so they know where the courage came from. She didn't speak for a moment, then whispered. You know, he said. You chose yourself. I just reminded you you had a choice. She took his hand, placed it over her heart. I don't want to build a brand this time. I want to build peace. He nodded. Then let's start with one beam, one nail. The next morning they began. No cameras, no crews, just Jalen and Dara, two pairs of hands, one shared rhythm. She didn't miss the city. She didn't miss the sound of her voice bouncing off concrete walls. She missed nothing, because this time she wasn't chasing legacy. She was living it. The doors took 3 weeks to finish. Jalen didn't rush. Dara didn't watch over his shoulder. Every morning, he carved a little, smoothed an edge, sanded a groove. Every afternoon, she returned from meetings with town officials, permits tucked in her bag, details in her notebook. They didn't talk about pace. They talked about feel. The wood had knots, not flaws, truths. He left them visible. She didn't ask him to change them. I want the people who walk through these doors to know they don't have to be flawless to belong. He paused when she said that, then replied, neither did we. When the doors were finally mounted on the barn, she didn't post a photo. She stood in front of them for a long time, ran her hand along the frame. Jalen stood beside her, arms crossed, eyes watching her more than the work. You okay? He asked. She nodded. This is the first thing I've opened without fear of what I'll lose. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. They opened the doors together that day. No ribbon, no cameras, no list of names. Inside, the space still smelled of sawdust and pine. Outside, the grass was damp from a soft spring rain, but something new had started, not an event, a movement. That night, they lit a fire behind the barn. One chair for her, one for him. She pulled a folded letter from her jacket. What's that? He asked. A promise. He waited. She read it out loud. I will not abandon what matters to chase what shines. I will not use love as a reward for performance. I will stay, even in silence. I will choose peace, loudly and repeatedly. And when fear says leave before it breaks, I will build instead. She lowered the paper. He reached for her hand and held it. Not tightly, but with the kind of grip that said, I believe you. They didn't say goodnight. They just sat until the fire dimmed. A month later, the first group of women arrived at the retreat. Quiet women, tired women, capable women who had never been invited to rest. Dara greeted them at the doors Jalen built and said, you don't need to prove anything here, just breathe. She didn't speak like a CEO. She spoke like someone who had once been lost in noise and found in silence. Jalen didn't attend the sessions, but the women saw his hands in every beam, every bench, every spoon in the drawer. On the last night of the retreat, one of them asked Dara, did you build this alone? She smiled, no, but I broke alone once. That's how I knew what to build. And when the woman looked away to hide her tears, Dara didn't reach for her. She just stood beside her. Still, enough. Later that night, she returned to her cabin and found Jalen waiting on the porch. She sat beside him, kicked off her shoes. It worked, she said. I never doubted it. She leaned into him, not needing to be held, just knowing she could be. And as the moon crept across the trees, they stayed there. Two people who had learned that love is not built in grand gestures. It's carved into the quiet. Over time, by choice. She had power. She had wealth. But none of it could teach her how to stay. It took walking away from the world she ruled to remember what love without conditions feels like. And when she stopped performing, stopped chasing, stopped proving, peace waited where she left it. Not everything is meant to last, but some things are meant to return. Wiser, softer, earned. What you walk away from by choice, you may never recover. But what you walk toward in truth, that becomes your legacy. So tell us, have you ever had to rebuild something not with money, but with presence? Leave a comment below. Let us know your biggest takeaway from this story. Tap like if this moved you. Share it with someone who once taught you how to slow down. And subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories for more love stories that speak louder in the quiet. Because here, we don't just tell stories, we teach what power can never buy.